Gunman Chronicles sounds like a satirical name for Halo, but in all reality is a first-person shooter released in the year 2000. It has an interesting history as it started as a Quake Deathmatch mod just named Gunmanship 101. Then it was moved to Quake 2's engine before becoming a Half-Life mod. It was shown off at a Half-Life Expo in 1999 where it got Sierra's attention, who approached them to make a retail version. It got bigger funding, some office space, some added staff, and became a full standalone game. Plans even were to release this game on the GameCube, but that never happened. Unfortunately, this game seems to be forgotten and lost in time, as you can't really buy it anywhere anymore. It came out before Steam was a thing, meaning you had to actually leave your house and buy a physical item called a disc that you put into your computer, and man, I don't want to remember those times. Sarcasm aside, most PC gamers don't even have an optical drive in their computer nowadays just because it's so much more convenient to have everything digitally. Every once in a while, I'm really confused as to why console gamers want all their stuff to be physical, and then I remember that the storefronts that Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo run are complete ass and overpriced, and really it's just better to go physical over there until they get better anyway. Especially when you don't really have competition because it's controlled by one company, so prices aren't going down. Sorry console gamers that you have to deal with that. But I digress. The point is you can't buy this game anymore, and the studio itself is now defunct. So really, your best bet is to download a mod to play this game. And when I say mod, I really do just mean this is the retail version of the game without the opening cutscene. You aren't taking any money away from anyone by doing this, it simply cannot be bought and is abandonware now. Now I mentioned this game started as a mod, but this is a different time. When a game went from being a mod to a full production game, it meant there was actual value behind it instead of just throwing your shit onto the Steam store and going, look, I released a video game. Production value is absolutely there and is much higher than what you would expect from a mod. The game itself is around 5 hours long, which is pretty okay and about standard for what you would expect with a shooter, and completely everything is new from Half-Life 1. The gameplay itself is similar, but there's different textures, different guns, entirely different maps. It's not the same game. Again, this really is a standalone game. Let's start with the story. The story is almost endearingly B-movie, but at the same time it tries to take itself a little bit too seriously. As for the plot itself, it kind of doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. There's a military faction called the Gunmen, and when exploring the alien world, the general gets overwhelmed and ends up being left there to die. This general actually didn't end up dying, and for some reason, instead of being a logical person and leaving the planet and everything being fine, he decides to basically try to kill all of the human race by making his own alien creatures and sending them out on human planets. It's a story that doesn't make any sense, and it's really just there to say, hey look, this is the main antagonist that you need to get rid of. The voice acting itself is actually pretty good. The content the voice actors may have to say might be a little bit silly at times, but the voice acting itself never comes across as bad. Hell, even the voice actor for Duke Nukem is in this game. The other main character in this game is just called the Mainframe, an AI that originally tries to kill you but then ends up teaming up to you because the alien presence is more of a threat than you are. And the character development with this AI is actually pretty good. I said this before, but the video game market was just a different time back then. This is really a driving device to keep the game going forward. The combat went above everything else, and story was sort of in the background. It definitely existed and was there enough to get your attention, but that wasn't the main driving force of the game. It honestly makes me miss those times where a video game was the most important part of the video game, rather than it being an interactive movie that holds your hand too much and makes it really hard to enjoy. Now I'm sounding like an old man, so let me say a few games nowadays still do this quite well. Doom 2016 is a great example, please give me more of that. Before we move on to talking about the gameplay itself, let's talk about the graphics. Now obviously it's quite dated, it runs on the Half-Life 1 engine, but for the Half-Life 1 engine it actually looks pretty decent. The vibe this game gives off is really bizarre. It's sci-fi, but sort of old school sci-fi, and you can really see where it draws in its inspirations from, but it never blatantly rips anything off. Quite the opposite, it feels very unique. But sci-fi in the year 2018 is really different from sci-fi back in the year 2000. And really it's difficult to explain this without just telling you you're gonna have to play the game yourself. The best I can do is say this game does world building quite well. One moment you're in a spaceship with gravity sort of bending depending on what hallway you're in, the next moment you're on a planet with dinosaurs, the next moment you're on a more desert planet. It's obvious that you're going to different locations, and they really hammer it into your head that, hey look, it's a full galaxy, and humans are going basically anywhere they want. They definitely give the artists some freedom with what they can do, and it really shows and stands out. From this point we can move on to the gameplay, and it honestly doesn't do things too different from Half-Life 1. The movement, gunplay, and map structure feels pretty similar to that of Half-Life 1, so if you've played Half-Life 1 a lot and like it, you'll feel right at home here. There are a few key differences however. The first one is that the enemies you're shooting at are completely different than Half-Life 1. Even human enemies do not feel like the Marines in Half-Life 1. doing combat roles and just shooting at you in different ways than what you saw with the original Marines. Oh, also they're space cowboys. I forgot to mention that. This game sort of has an Old West vibe to it. It's really bizarre. The next faction are the Droids, which are interesting because purely from an artistic standpoint, they don't look like what you would assume a droid would look like in your head. They look almost feral, like they would attack you on sight, and well, they do, even though they fire lasers at you as well. The next faction are the Xenomes, and these are the alien creatures that the general made to attack the gunmen. They look very, very bizarre to say the least, and attack you in many different forms. And then there are dinosaurs in this game, just because people like dinosaurs. There's not much other reason than that. You go to a planet and there are dinosaurs on the planet, and that's an enemy. I'm not complaining, dinosaurs are pretty cool. Had a pretty heavy Turok vibe towards the beginning of the game. Really the thing that stands out above everything else though are the weapons themselves. All of them have numerous different firing modes or different ways to customize it. The pistol itself can be fired in a beam, it's sort of a ball charge shot, it can be made into a machine gun, or it can be used as a sniper. The rocket launcher has a ton of different ways to use it, too many to really cover in this video, and this is true with all of the guns. They all have a ton of different split functions that you can use, and it's really cool, but it's a little unintuitive. And really that's my biggest complaint. Swapping between these different options with the guns is sort of annoying and tedious. You right click to bring in the menu, you right click again to go down one in the menu, you use the scroll wheel to go back and forth between whatever you're looking at in the menu. You're not going to do this in the middle of a gunfight. You basically want to have your settings set before you go into that gunfight. Again, it's really unintuitive. I'm still glad it's there because the guns are really damn cool and are definitely the standout of this game, but swapping between the different options with the guns could have been made a lot easier. And really, that's it for the entire game. It's a Half-Life mod turned retail. It's based off old school science fiction because it's kind of an old school game, and it's really cool. It's definitely worth playing. You can download it on ModDB since you can't really buy it anymore, and you probably never will be able to unless you find a used copy somewhere. So there's no real risk or any buy-in to this game. If you want to check it out and go play it, go ahead and check it out and play it. I would absolutely recommend it. Thanks for watching this video. Huge shout out to my patrons popping up on the screen here. If you want to join them, you can click the link that's going to pop up in the end card or click the link down below in the video information. There's a bunch of different ways to support me as well. Like I stream this over on Twitch. If you wanted to check that out, you can go follow me on Twitch, which is also linked down below. You guys are the reason I continue making these videos. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.